it, we want to bring in Marc. He's the former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Great to have you here today to talk about it all. You know, President Trump has slammed good to see you. President Trump has slammed his so-called past supporters for questioning his administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. We want to start with this topic because he then even took it further in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net, and so they try and do the Democrats' work. The sad part is it's people that are really doing the Democrats' work. They're stupid people.
You know, I don't know if we have a running tab on how many times we heard the word stupid today, but it was a lot. Do you think that he could risk even more backlash by dismissing his supporters' concerns? What do you make of all this?
Well, Laura, they certainly aren't making it go away. And I guess you have to include the stupid and foolish. It would include Vice President Vance, Attorney General Pam Bondi, the director of the FBI, the deputy director of the FBI, who throughout the last 24 months have all articulated a belief that not just are there files, but have been very specific to suggest that there are flight logs and there's specific names of who went to these nefarious events in the Caribbean and who was trafficking young girls, and built the belief that in many cases these were very wealthy, prominent Democrats, and that they were going to uncover this and release it. And then, of course, the story evolved into I have the files on my desk, to then giving out folders to certain conservative media influencers, to then saying there really are no files. And now we're at the point of saying not just really are files, but they were created by Democrats, which, of course, doesn't make sense because Epstein was arrested during George W. Bush's administration and took his own life during the first Trump administration. And so they keep seeming like they're digging further and further, and it doesn't appear it's going away anytime soon.
You know, when we take a look at Politico, they looked at 3 potential scenarios to explain the administration's handling of the Epstein investigation. Because, I mean, you're right. I mean, you're following this bouncing ball, and it seems to be going a lot of different places. You know, either they're hiding something, administration officials actually believed the conspiracy theories until they took office, or they never believed the claims and were always misleading people. So out of those scenarios, what's most plausible in your opinion?
Laura, I think it's all 3, depending on who you're asking. I think that there are some who probably didn't believe it but felt it was helpful politically to propagate it. And I think that there's probably some concern about names that are in there that they don't want public. I still think at the end of the day, it's going to be difficult for them to just make this go away without releasing something. I think the problem now is if they release something but not all of it, you're only going to agitate both sides more. And so I think they're in quite a conundrum here.
Yeah, and you just gave us flashbacks to that day of the binders when they came out with the binders outside. I mean, that was wild, and that wasn't that long ago. So we'll see how that goes. Also, want to ask you about President Trump confirming that he did ask lawmakers how they would feel if he fired Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He said that they were on board, but he's not planning to make a move yet. Let's take a look.
He's doing a lousy job, but no, I'm not talking about that. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next, 8 months or so. And we'll pick somebody that's good, and we'll pick somebody. I just want a fair job. We want to see lower interest rates. Our country deserves it.
Okay, so what's your over-under? Do you expect Powell to complete his term as Fed chair?
I do. I can't say that with a lot of confidence, Laura. I think that it's, the president's anger at Powell dates back to the first administration, but it's important to remember he's the one who appointed Powell, and he appointed Powell because of his options. He felt Powell would keep rates lowest. And so that's the irony we face today is he's upset that the rates are not lower. But I think right now it's for him politically, he views this as a no-lose situation in basically haranguing Powell. Because either A, Powell says, I've had enough and quits, which Trump wants. Or B, he's pressured into lowering rates sooner than he wants to, which Trump wants. Or C, whoever Trump replaces him with next year is getting the message loud and clear that Trump wants lower rates. And so either way this sort of plays out is kind of a win for Trump. And I think he feels like there's no downside in him continuing to pressure Powell in this way.
You know, the impact of President Trump's tariff campaign is something else that we're keeping an eye on today because it is starting to show up in the economic data. So I wanted to ask you about that because Trump is teasing new pharmaceutical and chip tariffs as soon as next month. But the markets have been less reactive to Trump's tariff threats lately. So I don't know. Do you think that there is a disconnect there?
I think there is a disconnect, Laura. I think the reality is that this is the agenda that the president and his economic advisors have. And even though I think markets look at it and say, look, he started reciprocity tariffs and then he put a delay on it. He delayed them again. The reality is that the 10% across the globe is about 4 times higher than we've had for the last several decades. And I think the reality is economically, the president's had, I think, a very good 6 months. Jobs reports have been good. Markets have hit all-time high. He passed his tax bill. But, Laura, I think there are warning signs here because most of the largest retailers and manufacturers had large inventory. And they said that they've basically now run through that inventory. And pricing pressure is going to creep up in August and September because in either A, they've run out of inventory, or in case of many of the auto manufacturers, they basically produced their cars that had inventory before tariffs are in place. Now what's coming onto lots are cars that have been manufactured with tariffs in place. And so I think you're going to see a lot more price increases throughout the second half of this year.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you about this news that just broke, because Trump just announced that Coca-Cola agreed to use real cane sugar, something that he's been asking about. Just really quickly, your thoughts on that, on him getting involved in Coca-Cola.
Well, I think it's been a priority for him. He obviously has supporters in the sugar industry in Florida, and I think he drinks about at least 12 Diet Cokes a day. I think what's interesting is if you look at the agenda from RFK, is he's looking to basically get soda cans off the shelves and basically believes that this is all bad for your health. And I think there's an irony because that was the campaign of Democrats for a long time. That was the Michelle Obama, Michael Bloomberg campaigns to basically tell you what you can eat and drink. And so I do think you see potentially the president embracing Coke, I think, is a welcome sign relative to where some of the nanny state is in HHS today with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
A healthier version of Coca-Cola, right? Marc, sure. We'll see how this one pans out for us. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you.